This is the line. When we got there that evening, when we finally got to the village, this was the line of just the orphans in this little village community. All right, and that line stretched all the way, way out. They were all waiting for the one meal they would get that day that the organization that Eddie and Billman started would provide. And it shocked me. You would, like, the village is like noise all the time. If you have younger siblings, little kids are not skilled at being quiet, right? They're crazy loud all the time. But in this village, it was crazy loud because there were just kids everywhere. A lot of them had no parents. Can you imagine how loud it would get with a crew of kids like this with no parents running around, just going crazy all day? I mean, they were awesome, but crazy. It was totally silent. They got that food. It was the most eerie sound I've ever heard. It was like totally silent. The only thing you could hear was about 250 kids smacking. And it was like, it was just like, it just froze you. This chorus of like 250 kids, so hungry that they're just barehanded, putting what little food they got that day in their mouths. It was another world, literally. And now I had begun to see what injustice looked like, what injustice smelled like, what it sounded like, what it felt like. This is my buddy John, who I lived with his family in a mud hut for almost a month. And this is him collecting water in a sinkhole because 2 or 3 days before this picture was taken, a 15-year-old girl was eaten alive by a crocodile collecting water at the river, 15 years old. And all the children in the village saw that happen. They're collecting water at the river because they don't have any water. They don't have clean water. So they've resorted to collecting water out of this little sinkhole on the ground. It's filled with human waste because they have pit latrines, which means it's basically holes where humans go to the bathroom. Water's run down through there and collected in the bottom of this hill. They've also collected, there's livestock feces in that water, and they're getting horribly sick. This is John. This is my buddy. I hung out with him and lived with his family for like a month. This is Johnny's mom and a little sibling, and she's literally collecting water there. I know has the potential to kill that child. 1.5 million children a year die from diarrhea. We take a cup of Pepto or throw back an Imodium, and the rest of the world is dying. That's injustice. The water we flush down the toilet at a couple gallons of flush, the rest of the world, the bottom 2 billion of our planet, would die, is dying today at a rate of about a child every 15 seconds. And now I've somehow got to come to terms with, you know, the reality that I've been living and the reality of the world I've been living in. And so to buy some time, I started in education. I sat down in an interview with Ms. Rubeno and said, man, I got to figure it out. I came back to the United States and I was in crisis. Like, I have no idea what to do with what I just saw. And so I was like, well, I can buy some time. I'll teach for a year or two and figure it out. I didn't say that in my interview. I was like, hey, I'm just trying to figure myself out. I think you can give me a job while I do that. And I don't remember what my sales pitch was, but I was definitely selling. I do remember she asked me what did I see myself doing in 5 years, and I said, I don't know. I kind of saw myself to the interview today and was I'm not a 5-year plan person. And somehow she rolled the dice. She took a risk. She's probably still trying to figure out whether that's paying off or not. But I found myself in the classroom. It's kind of a weird place for somebody who found himself in crisis because of what he had accomplished in the classroom to find himself. It's really surreal. I found myself one day in my classroom. I'm teaching speech class, and I have a bunch of kids who don't want to stand up and speak. Go figure. And I'm like, seriously, you're going to be graded on this tomorrow. If you don't do this, you're going to fail. I'm telling you, man, you need to take these notes. They're going to be on our final. I don't know why you're not taking these notes. Right? Anybody ever heard anything like that? Any teachers honest enough to say they said something like that? I mean, I found myself kind of being the puppet master, right? Do the dance. Do the dance, Pinocchio. Come on, everybody. Go get your grade. And I was like, all of a sudden it came out of my mouth one day and my class was like I am literally like kicking students to the same crisis I was finding myself in. Giving the same sales pitch that had been given to me. That's broken. had to say, wait, something has to change. And so I went to Dr. Cohn, who was the principal here at the time before Ms. Rubeno, and I said, man, we're doing awesome stuff to give students the opportunity to become great students. But what are we doing to allow them the opportunity to become great people? And it was like silent. It's like eerie. And we kind of came up with the idea, based on some stuff happening at other schools, for a social action course. And we've been teaching it here for almost 5 years. And the idea is to get away from incentivizing you and demeaning you as students, to say that the only thing that's going to motivate you is to come get yours, come be selfish, come compete, come be better than the person next to you. Instead, we're going to seek for a model that's based on empowerment. When you get the opportunity to identify, what do I do excellently? Because it's important for the world that I am as absolutely excellent as I can possibly be. So we raise your awareness as to what's happening in our community, locally, what's happening globally, so that what I do in my classroom is much more important than getting a grade. It's about me getting knowledge that is going to radically affect the world I live in, because I am going to affect the world I live in. This is my buddy Robbie C. Really good friend. He's in a band, he sings and travels. This is him with a guy that just called J-Love. It's like a little kid that he sponsors. His name is like really long, and Robbie couldn't say it, so he's like, can I call you J-Love? And he's like, yeah. He lives in Haiti. And Robbie, he would probably be the first to tell you he is not the most remarkable student. He's a smart guy. He's crafty. He's good in business. He's a great musician. He's taken what he does excellently, and he's used it as an opportunity to radically reshape the lives of kids in Haiti. Right? That makes sense. You think Robbie's really interested in making a good album? Heck yeah. Okay, some of that is record sales, so those kids can eat. No problem in that. But there's a much larger target. Because the music he makes is reshaping the lives of children all over the world. My goal for you guys is not that we can train you up to compete hard enough to get better grades than the person next to you. And you should not buy that. Because if you keep buying it, if you keep grinding it out, it will keep getting sold to you. The response in my heart is that there is a subversive revolution of dissatisfied young adults. They say, I will not buy that anymore. I refuse to be demeaned by that anymore. And that you begin to recapture this most basic, glorious part of our humanity, your compassion, your ability to care for someone else. Your ability to say, my life is important, not to get mine, but to invest. And then everything you do becomes much more significant. It's what I say, it's kind of refusing to be shaped by your environment, but beginning to make an impact. This is what it looks like for students on our campus. Caitlin Ripley, any woman in an Alzheimer's unit, her dignity when she couldn't have asked for it. That's Christy Garza. It's hard to tell from her back. It's not good if you can recognize your students when it's like a very This is a woman that's like this is another woman at a nursing home that was just crazy lonely. She didn't have any family, and Chrissy would go every week and hang out with her, and she would walk her back and forth to her room, and she knew every little beanie baby this woman had in her room, and every little like crystal figurine. And Chrissy just said, I care about you and your story enough to let you know you're valuable. Brittany Berner volunteered at an animal shelter, no-kill animal shelter, and she raised probably about $1,800 to radically reshape the lives of the animals, some of them that will be here the rest of their lives. Matt Thompson installing chlorine generators in Mozambique and Malawi, Africa, because of what he learned and started to care about other people in the developing world. You think his science teachers are pretty pumped up that his ability to calculate parts per million of chlorine are saving thousands of children in that village? Kids that were plagued by cholera and dying, that could not go to school, are going to school year-round for the first time in their lives because of a student here at Atascocita High School. It's a group of students that I took to Nicaragua this summer. Who's in there? Jessica Milkey, Jared Cohn, Nick Shaughnessy, Emmy Eaglehart, and we lived in this community in Nicaragua for a week this summer. They did a project on the water crisis and specifically focused on Nicaragua. The organization was so inspired by the work that they invited us, said, please come live in this community with these people, meet them, and help us do this work. And literally, I mean, I have lots of other pictures, but they drilled a hole in the ground and helped this community find water that they never had before. This, to me, is the end goal of your education. The end goal of your education is not a class rank. I know that's like heresy. It's like I just like cursed. And we're scared as educators to say that because we're scared we're going to lose our ability to control your performance. But ultimately, I think your class rank, your GPA, all those other secondary things follow when you see a point to showing up. And my commitment as an educator is to refuse to puppet you and refuse to think that you need to be controlled, and instead choose to find an opportunity to inspire.
Yeah.
You're with that. Thanks.
Mr. Brady and Mr. McWhorter for coming and sharing their stories about motivation, and I just really want to really thank you guys for being here as we kind of jump down on the ledge. So we'll see you.